All right, let's get ready to find out what's going on in The Castle Crime. Chapter 3. It was still raining when they left the museum. I have to check in at the conference one last time, Dink's father said. I'll meet you at the hotel later. Okay, bye, Dad, Dink said. Josh and Ruth Rose waved. Mr. Duncan stepped to the curb and raised his hand for a taxi. A shiny black cab pulled over, and Mr. Duncan stepped inside. He waved as the cab sped away. Race you back, Ruth Rose yelled. Hopping over puddles, they dashed to their hotel around the corner from the museum. Soon they burst into the hotel lobby, damp and laughing. The hotel was called Welcome House. 200 years earlier, the small brick building had been a private home. Dink's father had picked it because it was close to the museum, shops, and restaurants. A small plaque near the doorbell read, In 1888, Jack the Ripper murdered at least 5 women in London. One of the victims lived in this building. The unknown killer was never caught. They never caught that guy, Josh said. He poked Dink's back. Dink shivered. When we were on the tour last night, I kept thinking Jack the Ripper was following us, he said. Those dark, narrow streets were creepy. He must be dead, Dink, Ruth Rose said. She rang the bell. If Jack the Ripper was alive, he'd be at least 150 years old. But what if his ghost was following us? Josh whispered. What if his next victim was a kid named Dink? What if... A tall man with red hair opened the door. The name tag pinned to his sweater said, Damon Fox, manager. How was the museum? Damon asked. I assumed Ian took good care of you? The kids followed Damon into the lobby. You know Ian? Dink asked. He's my cousin, Damon said. We saw all these amazing fake people, Josh said. Hey, has anyone ever told you that you look a lot like Prince Harry? Damon Fox blushed. Yes, I've heard that quite a few times, he said. Did you hear about the Queen's jewels getting stolen? Ruth Rose asked Damon. He nodded. It's been on TV for 2 days, and the story's in all the newspapers, he said. He reached toward a stack of London Times papers at one end of the counter. Take one with you if you'd like, he said, handing Dink a paper. Dink noticed a round bandage stuck to the back of Damon's left hand. Welcome House had no elevator, so the kids climbed the stairs to their rooms on the second floor. Dink shared a room with Josh, and Ruth Rose had the one next door. Dink's father's room was down the hall. In Dink and Josh's room, the 3 kids grabbed bed pillows and flopped on the floor. Josh turned on the TV set, and Dink opened the newspaper. A weather forecast was on TV. The weather woman was apologizing for all the rain. Rain yesterday, rain today, and more rain tonight, she said. Typical April weather in England. Hey, look, here's a story about the Queen's jewelry, Dink said. He read the headline. A royal mystery. No news yet on the whereabouts of the Queen's filched jewels. The 2 men who snatched the jewels yesterday on the Queen's birthday are still at large, but the Queen did give the detectives from Scotland Yard information that may be helpful. It seems that her dog bit the hand that reached through her window for the jewel case. The Queen also reported that a black car was parked on the road a few meters from the castle's main gate, where the robbery took place. She watched the 2 robbers, disguised as her grandsons, leap into the car and speed off in the rain. In her rearview mirror, the Queen noticed a white bumper sticker on their car. She told Scotland Yard that mud covered part of the bumper sticker, but she remembered seeing the letters UASS and EMAD. Any citizen who has information may contact Inspector Grabe at Scotland Yard. The royal family is offering a reward of £10,000 for information leading to the arrest of the thieves or the recovery of the stolen jewels. Below the story was a picture of the Queen wearing a tiara and necklace like the ones the kids had seen on her wax figure. There's a reward, Josh said. Cool. We should try to get it. How much is £10,000 in American money? Wait a second, Ruth Rose said. She pulled her guidebook out of her backpack. She flipped a few pages. Here it is. She counted silently for a few seconds. 10,000 British pounds is around 15,000 US dollars? Oh my gosh, Josh said. He did a little math on his fingers. That means if we solve this crime, we can each get about $5,000. Dude, don't start spending that money, Dink said. He flipped his pillow at Josh. If Scotland Yard can't find these guys, 3 fourth graders sure can't. Josh tapped his head. But they don't have the mighty Josh brain, he said. Dink fell over laughing. You don't either, he said. Ruth Rose clicked off the TV set. She stared at Dink and Josh. What if we could solve the royal mystery, she asked quietly. Josh looked at her. Are you serious? Ruth Rose nodded. Why not? We have a couple more days before we go home. But how? Dink asked. We don't know anything. Sure we do. Ruth Rose held up 5 fingers. 1, the Queen left Buckingham Palace with her jewels. 2, she drove to Windsor Castle. 3, she saw her 2 grandsons standing in the rain. Except they weren't really her grandsons, Josh put in. I know, Ruth Rose said. Then 4, she stopped and rolled down her window. 5, one of the robbers reached in and grabbed the jewel case. And number 6, her pooch bit the guy, Josh said. And 7, the Queen saw some letters on a bumper sticker, Dink added. Ruth Rose found that part of the newspaper story. UASS and EMAD, she read out loud. 8 letters. Are they words? Yeah, Josh joked. In some other language. I wonder what they mean, Dink said. Josh stretched out on the floor and looked at the ceiling. It means Josh solves the mystery, he said. I want a helicopter like the one we saw the other day. Do you think I can buy a helicopter with $15,000? Dink and Ruth Rose laughed. Then they heard something outside the bedroom door. Whatever it was making a soft scratching noise. Chapter 4. Dink walked to the door. He listened, but didn't hear anything else. Who is it? He asked. Jack, a deep voice said. Dink heard more scratching. Let me in. Dink gulped. Jack who? He asked. Then he heard his father's laugh. Jack the Ripper. Dink unlocked the door and yanked it open. Very funny, Dad, Dink said. Well, I thought so, Mr. Duncan said. He walked into the room and took off his damp jacket and cap. Mr. Duncan, we've been reading more about the Queen's jewels being stolen, Josh said. Dink's dad nodded. It's all anyone's talking about, he said. Unbelievable how the robbers pulled it off. Imagine disguising themselves as the Queen's own grandsons. It could have been an inside job, Josh said. I'll bet someone at Buckingham Palace stole the jewels. Yeah, Dink said. Maybe the butler did it. Mr. Duncan smiled. Sounds like you kids want to solve another mystery, he said. There's a monster reward, Josh said. Mr. Duncan walked back to the door. I'm taking us to dinner tonight, he said, looking at his watch. How about 7:30? Thanks, Dad, Dink said. See you later. Keep your door locked, Mr. Duncan said to Dink. They never did catch Jack the Ripper. He might be hiding around here somewhere. Dink laughed. Josh will protect us, he said. But he locked the door behind his father anyway. I still think the robbers might be someone in Buckingham Palace, Josh said. You mean someone who works there? Dink asked. He flopped on his bed. Yeah, Josh said. In the movies, it's always the butler or the gardener. Well, if it was an inside job, Ruth Rose said, why wouldn't it be someone at Windsor Castle? She was driving there for her birthday party. You're right, Dink said. The newspaper said she stopped her car a few meters from the Windsor Castle gate. How much is a meter? Josh asked. Ruth Rose grabbed her guidebook and flipped to the index. A meter is a little more than 1 yard, she said. And she saw the getaway car, Josh added. Maybe she remembers the license plate number. She told the police about the bumper sticker, Dink said, but no license plate. Ruth Rose sat on the end of Dink's bed. Josh stretched out on his own bed. They looked at each other. We should go to Windsor Castle, Ruth Rose announced. Why? Dink asked. To look for clues, Ruth Rose said. Josh sat up. What kind of clues? He asked. We won't know until we find them, Josh, Ruth Rose said. Josh grinned at her and Dink. So when do you want to go? Really? Ruth Rose said. Sure, why not? Josh added. It would be cool to have our picture in the London Times. Connecticut kids catch crooks. We can go tomorrow, Ruth Rose said. I'll ask Damon how to get there. The next morning, the kids crowded in front of Damon at the hotel counter. We want to go to Windsor Castle, Ruth Rose said. How do we get there? Today, her color was blue from her sneakers to her hat. Easy peasy, Damon said. Walk along Baker Street until you get to Marylebone Road. Then go stand on the other side of Marylebone. Watch for the bus 23. There will be a lot of other buses, so be sure to wait for the one that says Berkshire or Windsor Castle. What's Berkshire? Dink asked. The county where Windsor Castle is located, Damon said. Can we use our London passes? Dink asked. Damon nodded. Yeah, but only so many people are allowed into the castle at one time. You may not be able to get on a tour today. The grounds are beautiful, though, and you can walk around. You might even see deer or peacocks. Thanks, Damon, Ruth Rose said. Have fun, he said, and watch those peacocks. They like to bite tourists. The kids hurried up Baker Street. They crossed Marlborough Road and stood next to a bus stop. It would have to rain again, Josh said. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt. Dink and Ruth Rose wore baseball caps. Well, it's only a light rain, Dink commented. Back home it pours in April. They watched several buses go by. None was number 23. Cars and trucks whizzed by, splattering rain everywhere. Finally, the right bus came along. They showed the driver their London passes. We're going to see Windsor Castle, Dink said. The driver grinned. Be careful not to get too close to the peacocks, he said. They'll take one of your fingers off. The kid sat behind the driver. 25 minutes later, he pulled up to a tall fence. The gate was open. Just walk up that long drive to the castle, the driver said. A bus comes here about every 45 minutes till 6. After that, you're on your own. The kids hopped off the bus and walked through the black iron gates. Soft rain plopped on the trees, bushes, and bright green lawn. The first thing they saw was a peacock with its tail in the air. He stared at the kids with shiny black eyes. The kids stopped. He doesn't look happy to see us, Josh whispered. Why don't you go pet him? Dink asked. No way, Josh said. I like having 10 fingers. Ruth Rose opened her pack. She pulled out a small bunch of grapes that she'd snitched from breakfast. Watch this, she said. Ruth Rose waved the grapes toward the peacock. Then she threw them as far as she could. When the peacock chased the fruit, the kids ran up the long drive. Nice arm, Josh told Ruth Rose. Easy peasy, she said.